Hey everybody, I wanted to do this video. Just think of this as a between the stages video. I wanted to show you um, what the finished paint looks like on the bottom of the Falcon before I start in on stage 19 or pack 19, because in pack 19 we're going to be installing the cargo hold, the landing lights, things like that. And after I have that done, there really won't be a good way to turn this over to show this off in much detail. So I wanted to get this video out there before I do that. So this is the bottom finished, and it took a while. I know I've been teasing this for quite a while. The first thing I did was, there are colored blocks on here. You can see some gray, some red. There's a couple yellow ones that I did. So I masked off the entire thing except for those areas, and then airbrushed on the paint. And the masking took quite a while, because I will admit that is a weakness of mine, as I am horrible at masking, as I will show you some places here where we'll just say I'm lucky that I decided to rust this up a little bit. So anyway, once I had the colored blocks done, and I took all the masking tape off, then it was time to go in with the airbrush and start doing my rust and my grime. And I'll show you the paints I used. Personally, I think these are amazing paints. These are kind of my MVPs of the model. They're both made by AK, and one is rust streaking and the other is streaking grime. They are not acrylic paints, so you will need a solvent to clean out your paintbrush, or your airbrush, or your paintbrush, whichever you prefer to use. But they lay down so nicely. Through your airbrush, I'm using an Iwata Eclipse. I think it's a 0.2 millimeter needle in it. You don't even need to thin them. They're the right consistency. They go on so nicely. So what I would do, I'll just kind of show you some of the rust details I did here, some of the streaking. And I don't have anything in my airbrush right now, but I'll kind of show you just how I did it here. This is just a demonstration. You just barely pull back on your trigger just a little bit, just to get a little bit of paint, and then you move up and you pull the airbrush away while you're letting your trigger go forward, and that'll give you that nice streak effect. So I did that first with the rust, and then I found the streaking grime. Both of these are available on Amazon, but then I got the streaking grime, and places I'd done the rust, I went over with the grime just to kind of give it a different rust color so it didn't look quite so uniform. And then I did some streaking with the grime itself, and you can see that's just a really nice, dirty, almost a rusty brown. But I mean, if you look at it in the light, there's just the slightest hint of like some olive green in it almost. So I did that and just kind of mixed it up. This area here in particular, I'm very happy with the way that came out. And the good thing about this, and remember I said I am horrible at masking, is this can cover a multitude of sins. If you look up here at this red block, it's kind of hard to see, but you can see right there where I did not mask that off super crisp around this window frame. It'll come into focus. So I just really went heavy with the rust right there, rather than remask the whole thing and redo it. So I kind of did that over the whole bottom of the ship, and I didn't do it all in one go. It's one of those things where I'd do a section and think, that looks pretty good. And then I'd sleep on it, wake up the next morning and think, nah, I don't really like it. I think it needs a little bit more. This corner I kind of fought with a little bit till I got it where I was happy with it. And remember, this is the bottom of the ship, so any place there's rust that's streaking, it would be heaviest up here on this seam and then running down. So If you think it kind of looks upside down, that's why. And then places like these actuators here on the sublight engine flaps, where there would be movement as these moved in real life. I did some rust color on there. Again, the hardest thing about doing this is not making it look uniform. That's just my own personal thing. Again, I'm not telling anybody else what to do. I did not want it to look uniform. I wanted it to look like it just happened over time, age. I don't know if neglect's the right word, but that's what I wanted it to do. Because if you look at like an old car that's been sitting out in the elements and it's rusting, not completely rusted out, but it's starting to rust, it's not uniform. At least in my mind, it's not. So that's what I wanted to go with. And then places like this recess here, I went a little heavier with. Seams around, different panels and different elevations, I went a little heavier with, like in there. And this took me several nights of doing it, looking at it, going back over it, saying, okay, I kind of want to change this. And when I was done, I was mostly happy. But there were it looked a little too bright. It looked like paint, basically, is what it was. And I wanted to find a way to blend it in more in places with the actual hull of the ship. So then what I did is I got some AK Light Grime, which is about the closest color you can get off the shelf to match the color the ship is molded in. And so I lightly misted that over some places. And what that does is to me, it gives the effect more. It makes it look more like the rust is coming up through the hull of the ship as opposed to just being paint laid down on top of it. So I went over the whole thing with that. And the other good thing about that is it kind of muted these color blocks down a little bit. They were very bright. And if you look at like the painting guides for the ship, they're really not. I mean, the paint's supposed to look kind of faded and worn. So it kind of cut the color intensity down a little bit of that. And then after I was done with that, and then, well, I should say, then I'd also take some of that rust streaking and streaking grime also, and just kind of did some light mists in some places of some of that color. Again, just to make the ship look dirty. You can see I kind of went a little heavier, like this channel here. And then once I was done with that, what I did then is I got my gray and my black paints. And this area back here, where this machinery is, I wanted to make this look very dirty, very used, very old. My inspiration for doing this was I actually looked up some pictures online of old steel mills. Like the old Bethlehem steel mills in Pennsylvania, Cleveland, those type of places, to just really get in there how dirty and old and rusted out they looked. And if the light hits it just right, I don't know if the camera can pick this up, but you can kind of see there, like on top of that piece, well, the camera lost its focus because my fat finger, you can see just that little hint of rust still in there, because I did the rust color first, then went over it with 2 or 3 different shades of gray. And then even once that was done, then I went after it with some powders. And I've showed you that before. And then I did the same with the powders up here. You can see on these vents, I did that. And then I also took those grays, and up here around these recesses, I went around them with there to show, over time, the machinery in here, you'd be leaking fluids, oils, whatever. It's not going to be clean around there. So I did that. And then again on the front. any place there was like exposed machinery, I just, even if just a light dusting of some grayscale, just to kind of dirty it up a little bit. And same with the rust powders. And then the final thing I did was I took some black paint, and the damage on here that was molded in, I just thought it was kind of cheesy looking. I added some scorching around it where it was. And when you pull back, then you can kind of see the effect it gives. I'm pretty happy with how that came out. Now, I did make a mistake on this, and this is something just to warn people about. I posted pictures of this online on the official Fan Home Build the Millennium Falcon Facebook page. People show off pictures of their builds on there, and it is a place for you can get some useful information. Unfortunately, I angered some of the hardcore Star Wars nerds with this who, oh no, if you look at the Falcon in, frame 37 of scene 5 of the director's edition of The Empire Strikes Back, you can clearly see that the gray around these engineering recesses was not nearly as pronounced as you made them, and you ruined your entire model, and I hope you die, is basically the message I got. So I've learned to stay away from that site for the most part. I'll still glance at it every now and then just to see, if there's any other paint products out there that people are using. But just be careful posting things to Star Wars communities because they can be kind of nasty. And I'm saying that as a lifelong Star Wars fan. But yeah, if you do anything outside of, what is on screen, you've ruined everything and you're a horrible person. And I'm not going for 100% screen accurate on this. I'm going for my interpretation of what the Falcon would look like if it was an actual ship. And, I've owned enough crappy cars in my days. I know when things are broken down and you're going to get this effect. Look under the hood of your car. If you've got, an older car, look under the hood of it. It ain't pretty unless you clean it, which I used to when I took my car to car shows, but I don't do that anymore because I have kids now. But anyway, so yeah, that's how I did that. That's why I did that. So anyway, there's the bottom of the ship. And it's, like I said, it's pretty much complete. I'll be putting the landing lights in soon. That's what these holes are here. So there's that. And then I wanted to show you this. This is actually part of the top of the ship. And I can't remember if I showed you this piece before. I actually painted this a month or two ago. And again, I did not stick with Canon on this. I did what I thought looked right. And like these rectangle pieces here, I thought they needed some color. So I painted one yellow on that side. And painted a couple of them red on that side because I thought it looked better. Don't tell the fan community, okay? They don't like that. But anyway, that's this. And then I did an area up here. This area right here. This is a rust technique I learned from a YouTube channel, and I'll link it below. The guy's called Mars Garage. He mostly builds model cars, does phenomenal work, and he gave me he put a video out of the easiest rust technique I have ever seen in my entire life. I don't know how to do video editing, still never learned, so I'm just going to tell you how to do it. These are acrylic paints I bought at Walmart, I think, probably about $1.25 a piece. I've had these forever. And what you do, in this case here, you have I've got burnt umber. It's that one there. Burnt umber, chestnut. And then this one is podge yellow. It's like a bright yellow. Almost like a golden sunflower color. But all you do is you just take like a little makeup applicator brush like this. I started with I believe I started with the burnt umber. And I would just take that and Just dab it on. Just very thin. You don't want it clumped up. You just dab it on the area you want to be rusted. Then you take your next color, which would be chestnut, dab it on over top of it. And then when you're done with that, then you get your last color, your yellow, and you dab it on over that. The effect is phenomenal. And you can directly control it, excuse me, so it doesn't look quite so uniform, So like in some areas, it'll be a little thinner, so more of your darker colors will come through. In other areas, do your lighter colors a little thicker. So there's some modulation in there. And the effect is phenomenal. And like I said, I will link his YouTube channel and the video I used below, so you guys can check out Mars Garage. Subscribe to his channel if you want. Like I said, he's got really good videos. Really smart guy. Knows what he's talking about. And then once I was done with that, I did what's called, just for a little added extra razzle-dazzle. You always got to give him the razzle-dazzle. I used what's called the salt technique. Once everything was dry, I sprayed it with a spray bottle of water, sprinkled on just good old-fashioned table salt over the rust area. Once that water and salt was completely dry, I let it dry overnight. Then I did a thin coat of the light grime, which is the whole color of the Falcon, over top of that salt. Let it dry overnight, let it dry for a day, whatever. You just want it to be completely dry. And then you just go in with a paintbrush and you brush the salt off of there. And any place that there was salt between the whole color and that 3-color rust you put down, the salt will come off and you'll be able to see the rust poking through the whole color. And you can see the effect that gave you. And then once everything was done, and again, I did this on the bottom and I did this here, I went over it with some Vallejo matte varnish. I talked about that in the last video, and that's the effect. And then I started also working on the color blocking the upper half of the hull, which I had to use this for. And I'm going to talk about again. Here's where I made a mistake, because I had to mask this off. You can see what the masking tape did, even though I had a varnish on there when I took the masking tape off. And I mean, it was a 3M painter's tape. It's supposed to be pretty low tack. Apparently I was a little too aggressive putting it down, and it pulled off some of my weathering. So now I have to go back in there. And I mean, it should be an easy enough fix. But you can see right there where I started color blocking. Like when this is on the upper hull, there's like a red block that goes from this piece down to here. So that's what that is right there. But anyway, so yeah, I do have to fix that, and I'll do that when I weather the top. I have not weathered the top yet. I haven't done any rust. I just wanted to get the color blocking done, just to get it out of the way, because there's still a ton of glue-on details for the top I still need to do. So there's that. But anyway, I just wanted to give you guys an update. I know I've been teasing the paint for a while, and despite what people said online, I am happy with how it came out. I'm satisfied. This is how I had the finished model pictured in my mind. And honestly, with these streaking rusts I found in the streaking grime, the rust and grime has just come out better than I could have expected. I learned a ton doing this. Kind of improve my skills, learn more about using an airbrush, and just really happy with the way this came out. So anyway, thanks a lot for watching, guys. And like I said, go check out Mars Garage page. He's got a ton of modeling tips on there. Great guy, smart guy, great information. So anyway, thanks a lot for watching.